According to the there we go. Okay, more people showing up.
Hello.
Okay. What was that? Did I hear somebody?
Someone saying hello.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, Marco. I'm Theo. Welcome. Okay, here's Alvaro. We're just going to wait a little bit longer and let folks join. Gabriele is joining. Excellent. So something happened and one of our presenters was here and disappeared. Hopefully he'll come back. He's Adip is doing the last agenda item. Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Hey, Alvaro.
How are you?
All right. How are you?
Pretty good.
Excellent. I'm going to put the agenda in the chat so everyone can see it. This is where we keep all of our notes and hopes and dreams for operators. So please put all your hopes and dreams in here related to operators. So we'll just start. We have a full house this time. We like to start by introducing people if you don't know everybody that's on the call, and just to get to know folks. So let's see, we'll do a quick roundtable. Say hello, who you are, and what pets you have. So I'm going to start just going roundtable here. We have Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan. I work for Kubernetes PG operator, PostgreSQL operator. And yeah, you were asking for a pet? I don't have one.
No pets.
So,
Only books.
Sorry. Only books and plants.
Books and plants. All right. That's excellent. All right. How about Patrick?
Hi, I'm Patrick McFadden. I work at DataStax. I work on all sorts of things. Cassandra, Kate Sandra. Pets. I don't personally own any pets. My daughter, who lives in my house, has a corgi, and it feels like sometimes that's my dog. So does that count?
That counts. We'll count it. Awesome. How about Michelle?
Hello, I am Michelle. I work at Google. I am also one of the SIG storage leads, and I have a cat.
Awesome. Welcome. Alvaro?
So, hello, everybody. I am the founder of a company called Ongress, specialized in Postgres. We also work on an open source Postgres for Kubernetes operator. And I actually love pets. We have at home a dog. It's a hunter breed dog. She's incredibly nice, but also incredibly energetic. So she needs to walk or run for around 3 hours per day, which is obviously mostly on me, not on the kids. Everybody knew this, right? So yeah, but it's fun. It's a good time to also walk outside and take some fresh air.
Yeah.
Which breed is it?
It's a mix. I mean, we adopted her. I would say she's kind of a, what is the breed? I'll come back to me.
Never mind. Never mind.
On top of my mind. It's a mix between some of them. Pointers. The closest thing is
okay.
pointer. Yeah. So very energetic dog.
Yes, indeed. Awesome. Thanks, Alvaro. Mateo.
Hello. I'm a developer of Stagger's operator, working in Congress like Alvaro. I don't have any pet. I used to have one, but I was a long time ago, so I love them, especially dogs more than cats. But that's just me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Okay. Marco.
Yeah, I'm Marco. I work for Kubernetes PG Postgres operator, a lot of Postgres operators DoKC. And yeah, I have a cat, a beautiful red cat, 2 turtles, and yeah, and 2 kids that I don't think they count as pet, but yeah.
Sometimes that seems like they will qualify.
Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome. Julian.
My name is Julian Fischer. I'm CEO of a company called Any9s. We are pretty much focused on data service automation, both for using VMs and nowadays also obviously Kubernetes. And I don't have a pet, but when I was with my parents back in the days, we used to breed Hungarian hunting dogs. That's why I was so curious about the breed. We had Magyar Vizsla, very gorgeous dogs, and also partially mixed with pointers. So they are about the same energy level, I guess. So when you open the door, they're like everywhere around.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are really beautiful dogs, those breeds. Awesome. All right, Gabriele, welcome.
Hi, I'm Gabriele. I've been involved in Postgres for many years. I'm a former co-founder of Second Quadrant, and then we were acquired by EDB, so I'm now part of EDB, and I'm also part of the team that maintains Cloud Native PG, the Cloud Native PG operator. And I have a guinea pig. Her name is Polpetta.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's my daughter's favorite friend.
Amazing. All right, Adeep, if I'm saying that correctly, welcome. Introduce yourself and tell us what pets you have.
Hi everyone. My name is Adeep Singh. I've been working in the data Kubernetes space for almost 6 years now, maintaining the Druid operator in the community. Currently engaged with Startree and a couple of startups, so mostly running OLAP on K8s. I have like my family are basically animal rescuers, so they kind of have like 12 pets in the house. So in my house, I like to call it more like an animal shelter. So it's I have like a lot of rescue dogs there, basically.
Awesome. That's my dream house.
Yeah.
All the animals. Very cool. Victor.
Yeah, I'm in Florida. I've been database consultant for 20 plus years. But Kubernetes is new to me. So like to contribute wherever I can, especially probably database operators, become a kind of junior developer in this area, wherever need me. I don't have a pet of myself, but we have a kind of a street cat turned a pet that just roam around our street. So we tend to just consider him part of the family. So
Awesome. Friendly neighborhood
Multi-tenant cat. What a great idea.
Yeah. He's actually adopted from Iran. So really, so he's been all the way to Iran, then Pennsylvania, Chicago. Now he's in Florida. So he's a neighbor's cat. Everybody loves him.
A cat has traveled to more places than I have.
Yeah, very friendly. At the same time, he knows how to protect himself.
That's awesome. Welcome. Glad to have you here. And Stephen.
Hi. So this is my first time one of these. I work for QuestDB, working on an operator for us, and recently just joined this community. So excited to see what's going on. I'm also in Florida. That's cool. And I have a dog right here. His name is Nacho, and he works with me all day.
Hi, Nacho. So cute. Awesome. Very good. Well, I'm Melissa Logan. I'm director of the Data on Kubernetes community. If I haven't met you, I'm super excited that you're here. And excited to dig into this agenda. We have many pets, dogs, cats, horses, and we used to have chickens and ducks and other things too. Very, very much in line with what you were saying, Adeep. We have an animal. It's like an animal rescue around here sometimes, I feel like. All right, well, we have a great agenda, so we can dig in. The first thing on our list is the tag storage collaboration update. So I know Jonathan had some technical issues last week and couldn't join the SIG meeting. If you look in the agenda, there's this outline of the white paper that we've been talking to the tag storage group about, and it's a Data on Kubernetes white paper. They have the goals in there. An overview of what they think should be included, and what they want is feedback from our group on, is this okay? Is it missing anything? Does it have too much in there? what do we think is the right approach for this? So we don't need to go through it necessarily now, but I encourage all of you to please take a look at this and give them your feedback. They would love feedback from DoKC on this document. And Jonathan and Patrick, I don't know if you've had separate conversations with Jing or Alex or anyone else. Is there anything else you want to add to this?
No separate conversations. Yeah.
Okay.
No, me neither.
And Jing, who is a co-chair of the Tag Storage Group, is in our channel. She's a very well-known member of our community. She is in the SIG operator channel. So if you have questions for her or any feedback or thoughts, just tag her in there and I'll put her name in this doc so you all know who she is. Awesome. So moving on to the next agenda item, it will be Alvaro giving us an update on the operator feature matrix.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, is everyone here up to date, or should I go briefly back over the small presentation that I had, or just a conceptual explanation?
That's a good question. So most folks weren't here. It might be good to give an overview.
I see a lot of new faces, some faces, of course, that I know, but anyway, new to this meeting. Are you fully up to date, or raise your hand, or what should I do?
Would folks like an overview? Raise hands.
I think what Melissa said was the right way to go. Just, yeah, quick recap.
Okay, so let me do a quick recap. Maybe I'll just share screen. I have 7 slides presentation. It's not a presentation person. Well, I have to be, but doesn't matter. I mean, like, very openly interrupt any second. I don't pretend to bother you too much. I just wanted to show quickly the idea here. So actually, this is an idea that came some long time ago after some conversations, and I decided to try to turn it into something actionable. I call it originally the POFM, Postgres Operator Feature Matrix. And so before explaining actually what it is, let me explain you what is the goals, right, for this matrix. There's 2 or 3 main goals for this matrix. The idea is, you can imagine what it is, right? It's like a table, right, of features, and then checks, like whether a given operator provides this feature or not. But it goes much deeper than that. The main goals are, first of all, to provide valuable information for the users. We, as one of the entities producing one of these operators, we're frequently asked by users, okay, what characteristics, what features do you provide? Yeah, go to the docs, but that's not the right answer, right? Because that is not a compiled list of features. That is, yes, okay, we'll go read the docs, that's fine, but it's good to have a good description of those features being provided. So this is information for the users. This is all in general, all this project is about looking from the user's perspective, how do they see operators, right? In this case, Postgres operators, but I'll talk later that is not only for Postgres. Even more important is to standardize. If you look to the blog posts you see, or other operators, and people name the same thing differently, which adds to the confusion of users. Not only now they know exactly which features a given operator has, but even more than that, they see things differently, named differently, and some called, you get the point, right? So this adds to the confusion. So the goal of this project is provide a good list of features with the proper descriptions, with proper categorization, so that users know very quickly where to look at and where to find whether a given feature is provided or not. And second, standardize on those features. Stemming from this, we get other side benefits. One is that we potentially can prevent from biased or partial or incorrect or especially stale comparisons that you can find on the web. This is very frequent. Someone tests a set of operators, does a comparison, that's a nice effort. But then this information was done, I don't know, 1 year ago, and things have evolved a lot. So that information is now stale. If there is a mechanism such as this feature matrix with a submission mechanism by vendors to provide updated information, then it's up to the vendors to update this and then reflect up-to-date characteristics always. And definitely not the least important thing is that this effort was very appreciated, hosted, and embraced by DoK. And so it's a vendor-neutral effort, so that we provide this in a vendor-neutral way, and we can set this as standard. And that's the main way. So what is exactly the feature matrix? And this is, again, some initial take. We will take it from here to whenever we want to make it. But it's essentially a matrix of features, a table, as I said before. Initially, my original idea was to classify by features and then to extract some by categories, essentially. But then to extract some core features as the most relevant ones, so that to provide a summarized view to the user, and then the capability to drill down as much as possible. And this turns out to be a specification for vendors, as I said, to submit their compliance. So the idea is that for each feature, you provide value, which typically is a Boolean. Most of them are designed to be Boolean. Some of them are small strings or strings arrays in very small cases. And then together with the value, like whether the operator provides this feature or provides this feature with this particular name or whatever, to also add additional fields like one field for links or proof of the implementation of that feature typically should be a link to documentation. So actually it's very convenient for users to say, oh, okay, so you implement this feature and you click on the link and you go directly to documentation for that particular feature. In my opinion, that becomes extremely useful as a user. And also you can obviously add the comments field, so you explain yourself or whatever, you know, what to characterize that feature implementation, right? And then we can take this further and kind of make it, and this is an idea stemming from DoK, to make it non-Postgres specific. And actually, going through the list of features proposed, there are many, around 40% of those, which are Postgres independent and could be totally made independent and turn this idea into a framework that is non-Postgres specific. And then we can do one for MySQL, for Cassandra, for any stateful workload that runs on Kubernetes. Potentially even for stateless, but that's already quite different, right? And so we can take the non-Postgres specific features as a baseline for those, plus many of the ones that are Postgres specific may have very easy translatable to other technologies. They're Postgres specific, but it's not easy, it's not difficult to look at them, copy, see if there's an equivalent of the appropriate technology, and came up with an equivalent. So I believe it is not a big effort once we have this boiled down to make it available for other technologies. So where this matrix is gonna live? Well, hosted on DoK. I got access to a repository to push the initial ideas. Unfortunately, I don't have enough permissions yet, but we'll figure this out. But the repo is already created there. And my idea, and again, this is just, you know, open proposal, open discussion, to have both a Git repository where the specification of the matrix will live, the vendor submissions, which in my opinion should be a pull request to the repo, should live, and then a separate or a companion website where we can render these submissions. So as you'll see now, my idea about this specification is that it's a programmable document, okay, YAML, and so we can derive views from it, including web views, so that there could be a website similar to the DoK Landscape, which is live right now since some time ago, that control the matrix and the vendor submissions, so that we have an official repository in a web easily consumable way, but also programmatically if you go to the Git repo of these features. And again, my goal is that to make it very, very useful, easy for users to consume this, to understand what is provided and where and how to use it and whatnot. And last but not least, this could be useful for calling this kind of a standard. And so that, and now I'm putting my hat back of not on DoK, but Stackres, and from our perspective, we would like to bring this back to our website and say, look, this is the features we adhere to this standard. And I think this is because we believe it's extremely valuable for our users to see this detailed feature set. So we will bring this to our documentation website. I encourage others, obviously, to do exactly the same and say we adhere to this documentation standard. I think that's very, very valuable. And this would be a DoK standard. So this is totally outdated. Just totally forget about this. Also, these numbers are all outdated. This is I'm looking for a lot of feedback. So, and now I want to bring you feedback from you. So next steps, this is not updated, this presentation, but the Git repo is already created. The repo structure is almost more or less decided, and there is initial commit. So I'm going to show you right now. And then the next steps are pending, which is write the user's guide. The user guide is very simple. It's essentially a render of the table. Instead of a YAML file, a table rendered in Markdown. Then the vendor submission specification is also a small document explaining how to produce a submission by a given vendor for a given version. It's also, the submission is also expected to be a YAML document. Then I'll call for feedback as before request for comments. I call this beta right now. I've been collecting some feedback. Now I want to open to others. And then we can, when we are all happy with this, we can call it 1.0. And we can also produce some sample submissions from vendors to show us how this will work in reality. I really appreciate Melissa, because I know you've been chasing a lot of people to join this meeting today and others before, because we want to have this for this and all the other topics, obviously. But the idea is to have a lot of voices here and very diverse opinions, because this is a vendor neutral effort. And before we reach 1.0, we need to make the best specification possible for the users to understand what features are provided. And that's pretty much it. So if you want, I can show you what the matrix looks like. Sorry that I pushed to a private repo right now. There was one of my colleagues was also providing some feedback, and I cannot show you in the official repo probably when Hag provides me the right credentials. I'll do this, and we'll take comments from there. I haven't finished bringing all the features that I had initially worked with, but it will finish probably by tomorrow, but it's almost done there. And so I can show you a little bit how it looks like. So first of all, the repository structure, there's a top level folder called Postgres, because we are making room for other operators, other technologies, sorry, in the future, if you want to add them. And then within the Postgres directory, there's going to be a specification for the matrix, and then the user guide, the vendor guide, etc., and the submissions, the directory for submissions. And the matrix is a YAML file and kind of looks like this. Maybe this is too small font. Is this readable? Anyone?
That's about right.
Okay, maybe a bit more.
Depends on your eyes. A little bit more would be better.
Okay.
There we go. That works.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. So, well, I mean, it's starting to be a pretty lengthy document. So we're going to approach 1,000 lines of YAML here. So it's a little bit of a work here, right? Everything is, again, this is initial opinions. There's going to be a versioning for the matrix itself. So I'm calling this snapshot version of beta 1. Once this is finished, then we'll essentially, it's open for comments already, but we want to reach a 1.0, and maybe some other metadata fields we'll need to add. Then features themselves are categorized by categories, obviously. Each category has a name and an array of features. There's IDs for both categories and features. This is a way to make them uniquely identifiable. Sorry for my database background lingo here, but also to provide stable identifiers for the categories and the features, so we can address them in a uniquely way. And we can change the names, whatever, but keep the IDs. So discussion is focused, it's very easy to produce. And so there's array of categories, and within the array of categories, there's an array of features. Features, we're talking around 100 features here. So just, to show an example, for example, here, one feature under general characteristics is the installation mechanism. The type is the expected answer by a vendor submission. In this case, normally they're mostly Booleans. This one is a string array, which means CSV, very succinct, very small, so that it's very readable by the user. We always need to keep this in mind of which mechanisms are provided to install the operator. For example, YAML, Helm, Customize, operator bundle from the SDK, whatever it is, right? What the user will see is in the user render table is the name, the description, probably could be like a tooltip, right? And then obviously the category, and main means that this is considered like a key feature, and this should be potentially rendered as a separate table of main features first, and then the rest of features by category. And then the vendor needs to provide a value for this according to this data type. The vendor will also be provided this information, like why or how to answer this if it's not obvious, and an additional links field with links to documentation and additional comments field for each feature. If you don't provide such a feature, just don't answer to this question. So there's going to be some shell scripting here with some tools to, from this source of truth, I call this a source of truth, derive the vendor template for submission. And then we can render also the tables for each vendor submission, what the values are provided. And I don't know, of course, we can go through all these details. We have a lot of work here already provided. I've been trying to gather as much information as I can from whether the operator provides custom annotation support, custom labels, whether it provides delayed replicas or cascading replication. You know, like there's a lot of features, and you will see that some of these features are Postgres specific, like managed replication or Postgres extensions, but maybe backup technology or backup destinations can be general for other operators. So this is all I wanted to mention right now. Please, I would really encourage you, especially if you work on the Postgres fields, and some of you are here, but even if you don't work on Postgres, I would like to hear from this. This is a DoK effort. Let's sit down and talk about these features and add missing features, improve descriptions, improve the data types, whatever is required, create the cell scripts, and start moving this forward. So I would like to hear from you. Get access to the repo. It's the DoK repo already. I don't even have admin rights yet. So yeah, thoughts, comments, ideas.
Well, personally, I like the idea very much of having some kind of standardization around describing features. So in that regard, I really like it. We've been automating data services nearly a decade now. So based on on-demand provisioning, virtual machines, and now pods. And throughout these years, I've been participating in the Open Service Broker API group a bit, where there was also an idea on how to standardize the provisioning of data services. So when it comes to standardization, having some kind of list that lists the features is one thing. But for example, the standardization of CRDs, which, for example, once you have a given list of features, would also be desirable so that application developers don't have to relearn how to express a particular Postgres instance, for example, using different operators. In order to achieve that, we also have to think about, well, what with features that, for example, like the binding between applications and service instances. So in Cloud Foundry and the Open Service Broker API, there's a thing called the service binding. Now, there are several operators dealing with that problem in various different ways. So there's this layer of standardization, if I were to choose it, would be maybe even of a higher priority than to have a list of features itself. And what I was always surprised to see, for example, that the Open Service Broker API did not try to standardize the creation and restore of backups. So when it comes to standardization, the first thing that pop up in my mind is standardization of CRDs, especially in conjunction with having a feature description. Because only if you make assumptions about the feature set, making assumptions about, let's say, the CRDs and trying to harmonize them is possible. And we try to achieve that by harmonizing CRDs across different data services. So when we have we've made a brainstorming to lay out CRDs across different data services before we started to then develop Postgres, the first one, because there will be several others. So that all somehow links together in my mind. So that's why I was jumping topics a bit, but
I can not disagree with you up to the point that actually, and Melissa also knows it because we also shared these ideas with DoK. I worked on a document that we called Open CRDs, where the main intent was to define CRDs as being a specification where it become like an interface, and then could have multiple implementations, like on different operators. There are certain things that are obvious candidates for a Postgres operator to become a common agreed upon CRD, like Postgres config, right? But what I've seen is that operators have taken very, very different approaches. Some operators, like we do in Stagres, have abundant CRDs. We have like 8 or 9 different CRDs, whereas others have a single CRD for everything. I'm not into discussing which approach is better, but I'm just saying that they're significantly different. And to harmonize or standardize on those, I think is a very desirable effort. I think will take a huge amount of effort. I don't even know if it's going to be possible if everybody will want to agree on that, but I definitely agree with that approach. Now, this idea is, in my opinion, much more achievable, at least in a short term. And it's just to standardize on documentation, and nobody needs to change anything essentially. I mean, to standardize on CRDs, operators will need to change their code and provide paths of migration for users. This could be painful. Even though I strongly agree with it, I think it will be a huge effort. This is a much shorter time frame goal, which is standardize on how we call things and provide documentation for users. Both are complementary.
I totally agree with you. There's one area where maybe a bit more, for example, the connection between the application and the data service instance. That's something that I think is better to harmonize than the creation or management of the service instance itself. But yeah, that's a different discussion. I just wanted to give my 5 cents.
I think your experience here from Cloud Foundry is very, very useful. There's a lot of very good ideas there. And service binding, I don't know if it comes from there or not, but it's one of the features in the matrix. I highly value it too. I think it's very important. It's just there in the matrix already.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think it is important, but for example, we are still in the exploration phase. And I think at least the first round of stuff, at least, you know, for our operator, maybe other operators have been there longer than ours. I think we still have to complete, let's say, the most important feature set for Postgres, whereas other operators already have them. For example, you can do partitioning in our operator only in an imperative way if you connect, but we might all, you know, add table spaces in an imperative way, but we're actually trying to achieve declarative configuration for all the global stuff. So we're not there yet, okay? So for example, we are planning to have multiple versions of the API in the future. So it could be that, for example, version 2 of our API maybe converges to a standard CRD or a standard model. Okay, so that's, but I think, yeah, I think this is important. And for example, there's a lot of customers at EDB, and I mean, EDB is one of the major contributors to the Postgres open source project. Okay, we have a fork, but we also support the actual open source Postgres. And there are lots of customers that actually want to have a comparison of the operator, of the various operators, and why, for example, what are the differences between them, because most of the times they have to do an initial evaluation when they choose maybe 3 operators and then they decide, you know. So I think if there's an independent and a standard way to assess it, it's good for everyone, you know, and for Postgres, which, as I always say, it's my, you know, it's my purpose. Okay, so I do think I am happy to do this job, but I do it because I love Postgres, and that's my value, you know. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, and your contributions will be absolutely welcome here. Also, Sergey, that I see that you're here, and I don't know if some of you also may have worked, but Sergey, also, I know you've also been working on some comparison, which honestly I also used as a little bit of source of inspiration for this. The main goal is not actually to do a comparison. I know that's also potentially desirable side effect. The main idea is to present and standardized and agreed upon list of features that can be informative for users. And so I believe from that perspective, any collaboration, also ping Gabriele later on independently, I think it's great. It's great to have input from everybody here.
Yeah, I thought about it when I saw a comment from you like provide users with up-to-date comparison of operators. I thought that you thought about my comparison. Oh, that guy did something bad. I need to fix that. Good idea. Yeah, I'm all in for this idea. And also, I understand why you start with Postgres, but once you have the first pull request in this repository, I'm all in to send another one for MySQL and MongoDB, because at Procon we do other stuff. So yeah, all in. Good job. Really love it.
Awesome. Highly appreciated. And what I mean, I was looking at your comparison is not because in a bad way. It was a source of inspiration.
I'm kidding. I understand.
But it's true. As long as you publish this, it's updated already, right? And what are you gonna rerun all your tests on your own every once in a while? It's not maintainable. What is maintainable is for vendors to actually provide updated information by themselves. So that if there's a vendor neutral effort under DoK in this case that would render this automatically from a programmable submission, so you send a pull request on a YAML document, and there's some parsers for this and renders on a web page, we're done. Anybody can reference this. This can become the source of truth for all the features of all the operators that want to provide submissions, hopefully all of them, and no information is stale anymore.
Yep. Agree. Shall we move on?
Does anybody else have other, I want to leave some time for a Deep's agenda item too. Is there any other questions that people have about this project? We can always take it to Slack too, so don't worry if you don't have if you need time to think through, because it's a lot of information for those who might be joining for the first time. And for next step, Alvaro, what do you propose as a way for people to get involved? What's the next concrete thing folks can do?
So I think the next step is gonna be just to review what is currently in there and provide feedback. So I just need to dump the last bits of it. I'll probably finish by tomorrow, and I'm gathering some feedback on my own, and to get more feedback on this. So once we have it on the repo, whomever wants to participate in this, let's ask DoK for access to the repo, or let's discuss on the basis of pull requests, and just take it from there. So that's step one. In parallel, I believe it will be great if we can start looking into the visual representation of this, because after all, this is for users, and right now we only have YAMLs, right? And I would like to see, it's not difficult, but just to apply some basic YAML scripts to transform this into something that we can see in a table. So I would like to work with someone on the web area I can call some people, but I don't know if DoK you have members to do this, and start working on the website part too. That's what I would do. Work on the spec on one side, work on the website on the other one. As for the spec, apart from the YAML itself, there's work to do to write the user-facing spec, which is very simple. It's just a README, essentially. It's just a fancy name of calling a README, but the vendor's guide is a little bit more important to specify how submissions should be performed. Not a big deal, but should be also written so that everything is clear.
Perfect.
Anyone who wants to help, again, those who are here from Cloud Native, Jonathan and Marcos, if I'm not mistaken, from Pertona, Sergey, and I don't know if I'm missing anyone else working on Postgres or non-Postgres, but also want to join already the effort. More than welcome. Let's interact in the Slack or ping me directly, and let's get to review the specs.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks.
Alvaro, and when you say, sorry, a website, what do you mean? Which website is that?
No, it's not built in. So the idea is to render this somehow, and so that users, I mean, yeah, you can browse the features by going to the GitHub repo and looking into the YAML, right? But the idea is to have a website that could render the submissions by vendors. So you can say, okay, I want to see version, I don't know where you are exactly, 1.5 of Procon operator for Postgres. I want to see which features does it have, and then show the features. Something like this. Melissa,
I wonder actually if we can, I don't want to say replace, but kind of reuse DoK Landscape website. Because
Yeah.
it feels for me like a good place where we can connect it.
Yeah, definitely. We could certainly reuse what's in the landscape and repurpose it for creating this matrix. That should be easy enough to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so we had a couple new folks join us. Welcome. Glad to have you here. We have one last agenda item from Adeep on distributed systems operator interface. So I will turn it over to you, Adeep.
Thanks, Melinda. I'll just share my screen.
Perfect.
Cool. So I think we have been talking about standardizing the CRDs into an interface. So my talk is something about that. My past experience has been running mostly analytical workloads. That's mostly around data pipelines. So I'll not be talking about mostly around transactional, but mostly immutable data, event data. So a typical data pipeline, whenever anyone wants to run, this is what the tooling looks like. And the concepts of these toolings are mostly around streaming. You'll be using Kafka or Pulsar. There will be stream processing. Then there is an OLAP store, which is the most commons are Druid, ClickHouse, or Pinot. You have a query, and then there's a BI tools. Now, as a user, I want to run and get a data pipeline up and running on K8s as fast as possible. So the problems which I see in technical terms is whenever we are dealing with any data pipeline, what we are dealing with is there are external dependencies. If you want to run Apache Druid, you need a Zookeeper. You need a metadata store, you need a deep storage. Same goes with Apache Pinot. Same goes with ClickHouse. When you are basically then again dealing with multiple node types. Each system has its own type of node, which can be a node which serves queries, a node which is responsible for coordination actions. So each system is having different node types. We also deal with application specific configurations, which can be runtime properties, log4j. And then there are Kubernetes specific configurations, all your pod specs, volume claim templates, etc. And whenever we want to deploy a system having 7 different types of nodes, we want to follow an order. You don't want to upgrade all the nodes at once. There needs to be an order defined. And the order also needs to be interchangeable at times. Then there is node type specific scaling. Each node type is unique. You cannot scale a broker with the same way as you want to scale a controller. So the logic for scale up and scale down for specific nodes is different. And whenever you are scaling any system, you need to get some metrics to scale. These systems are mostly come from the Apache Foundation and they're JVM based. So Kubernetes does not have any inbuilt metrics for them. And then you have to call some external APIs, which can give you certain metrics. And then you make call that now you want to scale a system. And all of this basically results in an eventually consistent system. So from a user experience, what I see is whenever any end user wants to run any data pipelines, he has to first deploy a streaming system. He needs an OLAP system. Then he needs a query engine. You need to learn and implement multiple CRs for each tooling. And there are certain teams who are experts in the database or the data tooling, but they're not expert in the K8s configurations. So there is often conflicts on where to add and how to add those configurations. And when you're dealing with multiple node types, it's hard to scale up, scale down, add and remove nodes. Scale up is not necessarily means scaling up replica sets in the data world, because there are segments, then you have to rebalance all of those segments. And our operator is responsible for provisioning external dependencies. Should your operator also manage Zookeeper if it's managing Kafka? And shipping data pipeline to production can take time and months of iterations. So this is something which I'm just trying to explain in simple terms. Like, what does an end user want when he is trying to deploy a distributed system with multiple node types? So as a user, I want to be able to define that I want 2 instances of a broker. A broker is a node type in 2 different availability zones, with one broker having a certain configuration which is high memory and the other one having low memory configuration. Now, when I say 2 instances, it does not mean I want 2 replica sets. It means 2 different types of brokers. So they are 2 different deployments or 2 different stateful sets. So this, I was motivated from the service mesh interface spec, which has a similar spec for defining certain capabilities and specs on if you want to implement any of the service meshes. So same way, I saw certain things which all of these systems have. They have different node types. If you see Pulsar, Kafka, Druid, Pinot, they all have an order to deploy. They all have external dependencies, and there is the basic install pattern is pretty much the same. So this is just a specification which focuses on defining some standards, and the goal is not to reinvent anything, but just to adhere to the Kubernetes API. And I'm just trying to encapsulate all the concepts into a structured spec. So I'll just go over how the spec currently looks like, and I hope it's visible. The redirection is taking time. Let me just go to the structure. I'll just increase the font. Cool. So the first thing is in a spec, you define the order that whenever I'm deploying any system, I want a broker to be deployed first and then a controller. So whenever you are upgrading a system, it will make sure that it follows this order, because order is very important when you have multiple node types. Then there is an external spec, which basically gives you like the ability to define whatever your external dependencies is. Now, note these things are not hard coded that you need to have a zookeeper or a metadata store. It's upon the end user to have whatever external dependencies it needs, but the external is something which the spec says you should have an external spec. Then there are node kits config groups. So config groups are specifically where you define, it's like a map of a string to a configuration. So you define your config groups, you can add your K8 specific configurations. Same way for you want another broker with some low memory configurations, you can define those. You can define another configuration group for controllers. Then there are app config groups which are specific to your application. So in any of these systems, there are some configurations which are common to all the nodes, and there are some configurations which are specific to node types. So you can have some common properties. You can have broker, which is specific to your broker. And then there are, of course, runtime properties and override properties, which can be added all to your specific node types. And then there is a mapping spec. So the mapping spec basically here, if you see how it's getting mapped, is that you define your node type, and then you say, I want a broker high mem. It should be stateful sets. It should run 2 replicas, but it should have, it belongs to a high mem group. You can define your app config groups. At the same time, you can define another instance of a broker, but it should run as a deployment. You can have the same config group and the different app config groups. So this way, this gives me the flexibility of adding and removing brokers. I can scale individual stateful sets and individual deployments. I can add and remove replicas. So if now you try to just see if this spec can work for Apache Pulsar, this spec can work for Apache Druid, for Pinot, so and even for Presto. So I was just trying to standardize all these concepts into a single structured spec. And this was most of the things were taken from my experience of trying to run data pipelines and the Druid operator to be specific. So this is all I have. Questions?
Sorry, I just have a very quick technical comment in case it might be interesting for you about one part of the spec where you specify these node groups or K8 node groups, something like this with the limits and requests. We actually created in Stackers a similar concept for representing, we call it instance profile. It's kind of a t-shirt size, right, for a node. And so we enforce users create an instance profile before creating an instance. So at the beginning, we had these limits and requests, but then we elaborated this CRD to include other fields. And especially is very important for databases. And I'm sure for these high mem instances can be also very interesting, which is support for huge pages. So if you're interested looking into how our CRD looks like, you may get some inspiration from there, or even actually, it's a pretty standard also. Now we were before talking about standardizing CRDs. I believe this is another example of something that is obviously a repeating pattern. We call this instance profile, could have another name, but essentially a t-shirt size for an instance. And I'm not sure on the chat window the link to the CRD doc in case it might be useful for you.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks a lot.
Other folks, thoughts on the overview that Adip gave? We can also carry the conversation to Slack too for input, Adip, and let folks kind of sit with it and see if they have other comments after the fact as well. And there's other people in the channel that aren't here too, so we'll open it up to a larger discussion.
Yeah, can we get the presentation somehow? Because some points were really fast and I wanted to read more about the things there.
Yeah, Deep, could we get a link to the presentation put into the agenda and notes doc so everyone can access it?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
If no other comments on that project for this call, that is the end of our agenda items. Are there any other topics that folks want to put on the agenda for next time? Please do so in the agenda and notes doc. Otherwise, we can close this session and we'll take additional conversations over to Slack. Appreciate everybody joining. Thank you so much. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.